At this time, I'll call our April monthly meeting to order, and we'll rise, and I'll ask Vice Chair Langley to give the invocation and Commissioner Rebholz to lead in the pledge.
Let us pray. Eternal God, our Father, we are grateful and thankful for the opportunity to assemble together one more time to do the business of this county. Lead us and guide us that we may make wise and prudent decisions concerning the welfare of the people of Beaufort County. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time I'll ask that you please cut your phone off or either put it in the silent mode. Item number C is conflict of interest disclosure. Any commissioner got a conflict that they need to disclose? Hearing none? All right. We're down to item number D, the approval of the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve it.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion and a second. All those in favor of the agenda, raise your right hand. Thank you. We're down to the service award presentation. Dolores?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I would like to take this opportunity now to recognize some of our Beaufort County employees for their service to Beaufort County. First of all, we have Melanie Corprew from Social Services with 5 years. Next we have Carney Hedgepath from Emergency Services with 5 years also.
I thought you'd have been here 3 years. I'd like to.
Okay, and then we have William McCutcheon with Emergency Medical Services with 5 years as well. And the next award is a 15-year award, and that will be for Miss Marie Moore, also from Social Services. We also have a couple of other employees that I'd like to acknowledge that are not here tonight. Mr. Josh Peebles, 5 years with our Water Department. And Mr. Mark Smith, 5 years also with our Water Department.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Katie, we have nobody signed up for public comments. Is that correct? All right. We're down to item number D, G, legislative updates for elected official. And William Moore was going to be here, but I do not see William. Okay. All right. The next item for presentation is from the superintendent, Matthew. Good evening.
Thank you for having me this evening. On behalf of the Board of Education, I appreciate the time that you'll entertain for this. 2 items. One, the board would like to invite you to the annual meeting that we have, a collective meeting to review the budget process for the Board of Education and Beaufort County Schools. I'd like to be able to work with your county manager, Mr. Allagood, to set up a time towards the end of April to do such, and we would like to host you. So if that is something that you're willing to do, we would love to have you so we can talk a little bit about the needs of Beaufort County Schools, more so than a quick budget presentation. Second, long before I became superintendent here, there was an agreement around a soccer field for Washington High School, and I'm here on behalf of the board to ask your blessing. So many years ago, apparently there was an opportunity that the county commissioners and the Board of Education engaged in together to acquire the land for the soccer field, with the understanding that the Board of Education would not spend additional funding on that soccer field, that it was mostly promoted by a third-party group, a support group to actually build the soccer field. Well, we are very blessed to be one of 19 school systems in the state of North Carolina to receive a state capital grant. And it was really through the energy of Representative Kidwell and a few others here in our community. And so we've actually qualified for a $121,000 grant to do some additional work on that soccer field. And I'm being told today we've actually qualified for a $25,000 additional grant. And these are monies that the Board of Education did not file to receive, but these are monies that the Board of Education would then use to actually do this work. So where we're seeking your blessing is that high school soccer, boys and girls, cannot actually host a North Carolina High School Athletic Association playoff game unless they have lights. And that soccer field does not have lights, and our boys and girls program at Washington High School has been absolutely amazing. And so over the years, when we host a playoff game, we have to host it somewhere else. And so last year we actually hosted multiple games in Williamston at one of their high schools in Martin County in order to satisfy that mandate. So considering, we're asking you to give us your blessing for us to potentially match the grant. And so the light stands that we're looking at cost in the range of $250,000 to $300,000, which means currently the grant funds that have been brought to us total about $146,000. So in short, through an RFP process, we would identify a bidder and a company who could install the lights at the soccer field. If you wish not to bless us on that, which is fine, then the $146,000 would be used by that group for other things on the actual soccer field. For example, a concession stand, bathrooms, soccer goals, other things. But in fact, they would not actually be able to host a playoff game on that field. So we're just asking you for your blessing to allow us to go ahead and do that. And that is to match the grant funding.
So moved. Okay, got a motion. Is there a second? Second. And a second.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to remind you, at the time that this was done, the school system had a soccer field. I don't know if he still has access to it or not. I don't know whether the lights are still there or not, Kugler Field. And the question was whether to improve Kugler Field or to go out and buy this money and spend a whole lot of money that wasn't necessary to be spent.
Right.
So then the deal was that none of the funds would come out of the school's budget in any way, shape, manner, or form, and you're asking us to violate that original agreement, is what you just asked.
I am asking for your blessing to do so.
Yeah, you asked us to violate the agreement that was made back then, so I'm not going to vote for this because it's another waste of money for something that we already had. It's nothing in the world except spending more and more money for nothing.
Well, and if I can respond to that, in order to upgrade Kugler Field, to get it to the condition for high school soccer for girls and boys, you would have to pay for additional bleacher systems. You may have to upgrade the lighting. I know for certain you have to upgrade the press box before somebody falls through it. All right? And so I've actually done my homework on that field, walked that field with our community partners. And so in short, I'm either going to put the money to the Washington High School field or I'm going to have to do some money in repair to Kugler Field. And we did receive a grant of which we did not expect. And that's put us a little bit in the corner of what do we do with $121,000, now $146,000. So the Board of Education, we feel very blessed that this landed in our lap, and I appreciate the fact that you may not vote for it, but understand that we're trying to respond in kind to something that's positive that's been brought forth by the state of North Carolina.
Well, let me go back and respond to that. You can probably modernize the bathrooms, put in the stands, and do all the work at Kugler Field for the $120-something thousand that you have, whereas we are abandoning that and going out and building a whole new, putting the money into the same facilities, but they are new and shiny facilities.
Right.
And, you know, it doesn't make economic sense for the citizens of Beaufort County, so I'm not going to vote for it. There's no business sense in the whole scheme that has been presented.
Right, and just to be thoughtful, I'm sorry, Commissioner, go ahead.
I would just respond. I think it's time, I'm going to vote for it, and I think it's time for us to start patching. If they got the money, let them do it.
That's one of the problems here in Beaufort County, is we're never really moving forward.
Right.
We always want to go backwards, so I say let's get it done.
I appreciate that. And just to be mindful, the state grant specifically says $121,000 for Washington High School soccer field. It does not identify Kugler Field.
And as I understand, Kugler Field's not big enough for a regulation soccer field. Is that true?
I would have to check on that, but I can tell you it's not big enough for a regulation-sized football field.
Right, that's true.
But I
And
would have to check on the site.
if we really renovated it like it should be for all sports, we'd have to take up a street. So,
Yeah, I think, again, the grant goes back to Washington High School, is the way it's written.
I'm assuming that it can be used for other high schools?
No, the grant...
No, I'm talking about, can other high schools play there?
Oh, the...
North side, south side?
Yeah, there's always
How
that
about
interdistrict agreement.
is it Optimist Club? Who has a soccer program?
that's the optimist. But they have a field. Now, I will say, too, I'm
Do
involved...
they have lights?
Yes.
Okay.
But they're not high school regulated size. Now, I will say I am involved with the football team. I've been doing video for 20 years. And I know that so much playing is done on the football field that it just ruins the grass. And it makes it almost unplayable. So we do need some relief, and this would certainly give the relief. And I also hear that there's some discussion of having lacrosse team possibly, and that would be played on that field too. So I am for it.
Well, let me go back and just say one thing, and then I'll be done beating this dead horse. You're telling me that somebody sat in Raleigh and picked out Washington High School, threw a dart at Beaufort County and picked Washington High School to direct that money to.
No,
Are
sir.
you sure they didn't have some advice and some help from you and the staff in designating that money just for that site?
All right, so let me tell you the
I
truth.
wasn't born yesterday.
Hey, nor was I, all right, 50 years ago. But what I will tell you is I told you the truth. And the truth is, Representative Keith Kidwell responded to a local request here in Washington that had nothing to do with Beaufort County schools, was not initiated by Beaufort County schools, and we learned of it after the budget was presented. We are actually one of 19 districts, as I said, in the state who suddenly received grants, which then disqualified us from receiving the additional funding from the state for athletic complexes that were at least $100,000, meaning that if you happen to get one of these grants, you could not have at minimum $100,000 that the state is passing out for athletic updates. So in short, Commissioner, I respect your thinking, but I can say with certainty, we were delightfully surprised as you are.
Okay, it's time for a vote. All those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Those opposed?
Thank you very much, and Mr. Alligood, I'll reach out to you.
I'd like to congratulate you on your newly acquired prefix of doctor.
Oh, thank you very much.
So,
I appreciate that.
Yes.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And I'll be in touch with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is the approval of the consent. I'll entertain, is there any item on the consent that needs to be pulled?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? All right. We're down to items for decision. Carney? Again, thank you for your 5 years of service.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, and Board, thank you for allowing me to present in front of you. I am coming seeking position reclassification in emergency services, and I'm going to take just a minute and walk through this process. We have come before you over the last year and a half in seeking an IT specialist position in EMS or in emergency services, and we've been unable to obtain that position. We understand those parameters. However, whenever we have a vacancy, it says in our personnel policy that we will evaluate the current position, looking to see the need of what we have in our system, and then make recommendations.
Excuse me.
Oh, excuse us. We were just discussing county business.
That's fine, but you should respect the speaker.
We do respect the speaker.
Yes.
Who says we don't respect the speaker?
I could not hear him because of what was going on. Sorry,
You have an
Ernie.
equal hearing.
Sorry.
Thank you, sir. In a review of our current administrative specialist position, we identified that a technology specialist position would better fit the needs of our department. Our current position is under a classification of 61. The new position that we'd like to reclassify is under a position of 69. I want to give a little bit of history. What's different now, things we know different now than when we first came to the board about a new position. As you know, we've been in COVID response the last year and a half, 2 years, from our first time in asking for the position. In our response to COVID, we ended up pulling a paramedic to help us with things that were taking place in our support of the health department. And just giving an example in the COVID response itself, I'll try to walk us through quickly. If you can remember, when we first had to respond to COVID, there became a scheduling issue. The scheduling issue, we had a certain number of shots, and we had 4 times as many people that wanted those shots. Everything was new, a lot of excitement. Director Madsen put in order, this is what we need. How are we going to now get this tunneled down to a small group? We came up with, let's create a scheduler. All right. So this individual, along with the help of Melissa, evaluated different things, came up with the scheduling that we put in place, which allowed us to minimize those first numbers coming in by qualifications. Now, it was not perfect by any means, but it was a beginning. So walking past that scheduler, putting in place by a person with this type of skill, now we're at the COVID lines. People are going in for their first shots. Those of you that went through that, you understand the paperwork that you had to do in going through that whole process. Fast forward from the setup of that until the next time. It's time to reschedule second shots and booster shots. Scheduling system is improved by a position such as this, where we're able to target exactly who needs shots better in understanding, making the system better. We move to the shots themselves. Now when a person comes in, instead of having to fill out all of that same paperwork, their name was given. If they were a part of the first shot, it has all been converted electronically. The person was able to drive up to the next spot and go through those things with minimal to no paperwork. That was not a system the government gave us. That was a system that was created in a grassroots effort in Beaufort County by a person with IT experience, and along with Melissa Beecham, in doing that in accordance with what was requested from the health department. So we saw constant streamlining taking place in this. As we go to the next shots, just giving examples, there's contraindications and indications of who should have that shots. How do we get scheduling even better? There are parameters put in place in the scheduler electronically to be able to take that information and provide reports to the health department for people to understand that, okay, now I don't have to call to verify this. It's telling me this is the things for this person. These are the ones that come through. Just giving you that example of a streamlined process that was able to be done, real life in response to COVID, because we had expertise in the IT arena. During this time frame of responding to COVID, we had other issues. We deal with issues every day. We know it's challenging in government. So dealing with those issues, one of the things that came up was about our EMS supplies. We were constantly having to come back to the board several times asking for more EMS supply money. In my first 2 years, mid-budget, we had to come back, or we had to make an adjustment of that. With EMS supplies over COVID, the price increase of EMS supplies started going through the roof. Not to mention just hard to get, inflation along with those things. So understanding this, we gave the problem to an individual and said, hey, what would you do with this? And they created they went from, if you can imagine, clipboards and written reports of tracking things, drugs that were expiring, things that are going on. They were able to put that completely electronic to the best way I know to describe, like a grocery store. You go in, everything's got a barcode. This system was built to now expiration dates, drugs, reordering, all kinds of things was done. Again, it wasn't bought, it wasn't given, it was built in Beaufort County. And because of that, it started saving us money on our EMS supplies. Now, the prices continue to go up. Our budget didn't go up, but we did not have to come to the board and request any more money for medical supplies. We were able to overcome that because of the efficiency that was made in putting that system together. Again, I just want to say, it was built here. It was grassroots, built by a person with this type of skill that we're asking for. And it works so well, it is now at least 2 other of our county departments. They're using that same system because they were losing money. Just on the expiration of drugs, it tracks this and says, in 3 weeks, this drug is going to expire, and we're able to now make sure that drug gets moved to the front and used versus getting thrown away. Moving forward, just getting out of COVID response or drugs here. When we talk about EMS data specific, which was my original intent of this position in coming forward, I can remember being asked by a chairman from this group, I want to see a map of where the EMS calls are. Okay, this was in my first year here. All right, so in that, it took us almost 30 days to come up with what was needed there because the information is not in one-way usable format. If you think of it this way, 5 different people with 5 different languages, that's what our data system was like from the various places we pulled data. So it took assigning a person that all they did was interpret this set of data, write it down, go interpret something else, and then have to or key in individually those things to come up with map points to give what we were asked to do. Chairman Waters, you sit on the EMS oversight. You saw the EMS data that was just given at that last oversight. We have an ability now that if you ask for those type of reports, we're going to be able to give that to you in some cases in minutes, let alone 24 hours, but not a month. We have usually on a weekly basis, it may not be every week, but on a normal basis, we have a commissioner, another person from a county department, or we have a citizen that calls us and asks us a question, something about data that we have to go and research and do. And just in the limited time frame with a look and a build of this with the right expertise, we've had the ability to take 911 call data, which comes in 2 different forms, EMS charts, which is our reporting, which is a whole other form, our Brad Goodman software, which is our EMS scheduling, maintenance and things, which is in another form, and our EMS billing, which is in a totally different language, another form. And an individual has been able to coordinate that information together where it talks to each other. And that's exactly what this position is about. So, looking beyond these examples and looking to the future, if you look in the job description that was attached in there, you will see so many things that need to be done. Data is transparency. The government is constantly asking us to be more efficient with less resource sometimes, or at least the same resource we can. When I come to you and ask for something, you ask me, where's your data? What's backing this up? Where's something that needs to be, show that this needs to be done? We are just in an information age with IT things and data IT information that in our line of work and where we are, we need someone who understands EMS, emergency services, and can help us with that. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions. This is why I'm coming to you with a request for reclassification of this position.
I got one. What's the person doing now?
It's the person who's currently doing this is Clark Pollard.
I don't want to know who it is. Okay, I want to know what they're doing.
He's a paramedic. Okay. But with that, we've pulled him from a paramedic to help us.
To build. He don't ride the truck or nothing, does he?
During this
Does he ride the truck?
not right now.
That's
During
what I
COVID
mean.
response, he
Okay.
has not. He is
Okay.
dealing with other things.
He's doing the job that the lady was doing.
No, she's helping him
Okay.
with that. So two different things. She's on the emergency.
How did you come to the fact that from a 61 to a 69? What drives that?
Well, it's been sent to the MAPS group for review. We look at current county.
Now I'm gonna vote for it because we done broke our. I'm gonna vote for it, but I just want.
Now, I want to be fully transparent.
I want you to be.
Yes, sir. So in the county positions, this is not the top IT position. DSS has one that's a couple of
We ain't talking about
grades.
DSS.
No, but I'm just explaining.
We're talking about EMS.
So, look-
let's stay with. I'm gonna vote for it.
I understand.
But I don't want to hear what DSS doing. I want to know what EMS doing. That's what you're not presenting for DSS. You're presenting for EMS.
I'm just trying to show that we're not trying to get the best or over. We've sent this to the MAPS group. We're waiting for the official back. We see a position that is in another department for IT specialists. It's the middle grade, you might would say, of the IT positions in Beaufort
It
County.
is the same qualification.
We think it aligns. The qualifications for the IT specialist is in the sheriff's department, so it has a lot of data around the CAD system, 911 system, and such. So we couldn't use that same verbiage. Ours is around EMS.
Well,
But other than
my
that,
last question is, what's so essential? COVID. I'm so sick and tired of the word COVID.
Yes, sir.
It's on the decline.
Yes, sir.
So why we didn't do this when the people when we needed this done? He was doing it for nothing at that time.
Well, we didn't realize his skill set completely at that time, and we did come and ask, and we were told no.
So you gonna bite at the bullet again because you heard what I said
I'm
at the last time?
continuing
I
to
got you.
push
I got
because
you.
it is
Thank
needed
you.
in our department.
I'm finished.
All right. You want to make a motion?
Y'all make a motion, yeah.
Well, wait a minute, let's have some more discussion.
Well, wait.
Let some of the rest of the commissioners, before you
You
jump
will.
into a motion.
You will.
This is totally out of order to allow part of the commissioners to discuss and the rest of the commissioners not to discuss, and then ask for a motion. That's not correct,
All
Frankie.
right. Well, go ahead, Hood.
All right, I have two questions. One, you're not talking about adding personnel to your department. You're talking about eliminating one job and replacing it with another job description or another skill set.
Changing that job description.
Okay, now, my last question is this. Under experience and education, it says qualifications for this position include an associate degree or equivalent years of college-level education in computer science. Now, we've had a problem in the past with hiring people that were supposedly highly technically qualified, and then all of a sudden you find out good buddy's got the job, and you wonder what his qualifications are. So, I would just like to change this to an associate degree is required.
The only challenge I would say in my experience, and you have more experience than I do, I would say in my experience, we can lock ourselves in where we may not be able to get a person that applies for our position. And so if that's the case, we do have to look, it's your application pool. Your
Yeah, I
best
know.
candidate out of the application.
I don't disagree. This is always a problem. I just like to say, or equivalent years of college level education. Maybe there should be a way to fix this with some oversight from somewhere, because I really am concerned about us creating these job positions, and all of a sudden some friend needs a job, and they've got a job and they're not really necessarily qualified for it, but everybody runs around and say, oh, they look equivalent to me. Have you got any suggestions as to how this can be covered so that we don't wind up in that kind of a bind?
Well, I thought I did my best in this. I didn't think. It says associate's degree or equivalent years of college level education as we look at.
But who decides what's equivalent? I guess that's the question. How do you decide that?
So that's through the HR department reviews applications and looks at that. So Mr. Loris can speak to that. And the majority of our job descriptions say an equivalent, and that's part of our style. We always do that. And I think there's some reason legally why we do that. Is that not correct?
Well, we actually got these qualifications from our classification and studies.
Come join me, Mr. Loris.
When we had our study done, we had those type things looked at, the qualifications for each position. And then the analyst recommended the minimum education and experience qualifications. And when you see that equivalency clause, typically 1 year of college can count for 1 year of experience.
But it says an associate's degree, which is 2 years of college.
That's correct.
So if they have 1 year of college, then they probably need 5 or 10 years of the actual experience somewhere else.
More experience to offset that.
So, I mean...
Related experience that can be applied to that position.
Right. What assurance do I have that we're not going to go out and hire somebody's buddy? I've seen this happen in county government, and I want to avoid it.
When we look at qualifications, we look at their education and experience. If they don't meet the full education and experience and we can't apply the equivalency, then they don't qualify.
Why don't we do something like this? Why don't we let the manager sign off on the equivalency?
He does. He signs off on the personnel action forms.
But the equivalency is the only part I'm concerned about.
That's part of the whole process, verifying that they qualify.
So the manager now signs off that this is equivalent to a 2-year college degree.
That's kind of a standard HR protocol.
But just to be clear, I sign off on every PAF that comes through the county.
Okay. So you're the one that approves the equivalency.
No, actually, I get a recommendation from the HR department. That's their job. They're the ones who do that. They have the expertise and the background in HR to do that, and they send it up, and I sign off on it. So, I mean, we have discussions. If there's an issue, we'll have a discussion about it. But Mr. Loris is the one that has that HR background who can say, yes, that's an equivalent, or say, no, that's
Yeah, but I'm looking for a check and a balance here. I'm not looking for the same system that we've been using. I want to be sure that somebody has said, yeah, this is an exception in this particular case. They don't have the 2-year degree. Who's gonna attest to this being equivalency? Because again, I've seen good buddy hired into several jobs that they weren't necessarily qualified for because they needed a job.
I haven't seen that in HR. Maybe there's someone you'd like to...
No, I'm not going to go specific with you. I'm not going into that trap. That's a staff trap. I'm not getting into it. I'm looking after the citizens of Beaufort County to make sure that a qualified person is hired to fill these jobs. That's what I'm concerned about.
And we even have some safeguards in place, for instance, with the health department and social services when someone does not meet the full qualifications. And these are qualifications established by the Office of State Human Resources. Then there's a safeguard in that if you have no applicants that qualify, you can actually hire someone to work against that position. And once they have 1 year of experience, then they go into that position. And I think just one example that we've used that I've seen is a work against. But we do try really hard to make sure they qualify, and we really don't find...
I know sometimes we try too hard to qualify them, so that's what I'm concerned about. Yeah. That's what I'm working on here. I have another solution to this problem. Why don't we let the department head that's going to work that individual sign off that they have the equivalent experience?
Well, they're actually doing that when they sign the personnel action form. They look at qualifications.
They're making the recommendation and they're signing the personnel action form, so they're saying that they have the equivalent experience.
Check it in HR.
And then the manager signs that they have the equivalent experience. Yes. So you're telling me we got 2 checks in this thing. Yes. I'm satisfied if we got 2 people signing.
And then if you get an instance where you don't have qualified applicants, and that can happen, then you have a trainee progression. You can allow someone to come in as a trainee.
Yeah.
Or either a work against.
Commissioner, it's actually 3 checks because HR, there are times that I ask to do something, Dolores says you can't do that or that's not what's recommended.
We should look at it closely.
HR has a check, I have a check, in this case the manager has a check.
Okay, I'm satisfied. Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Okay, we got a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Is there any further discussion? Stan?
Yeah. This is no different to me than the Sheriff's Department. I think there should be a centralized management of OIT, and we have our IT department over at DSS, and it can grow if necessary, and it can be managed there if necessary. But then we have a couple of positions over at the Sheriff's Department, then we have a new position out there at EMS, and eventually we have too many things that deal with raw intelligence and a lot of money, because these guys are able to go out and spend money for third-party software if necessary. And we commissioners, well, some of these commissioners don't know a thing about any of this. So, my opinion, it would be best for Beaufort County to have one manager over all of it, and they would be responsible for the best application of using software, either created in-house or purchased, and they would report to us, and then we could make that determination. But we're getting too spread out. And I can't vote for a spread out system that we have now. I really can't.
I'll vote for this one, but may I?
Yes.
Well, what I would say to Commissioner Deathridge is, we need to look at your idea as a part of the budget, and we need to look, that is something that we probably need to work our way into over a period of time. I do agree, we got too many intelligence people in county government, whereas one or two could probably do the whole thing with what we're doing, but I don't want to try to solve that problem tonight. I'd rather bring it up as part of the budget and talk about it there.
Yes.
I think this is so unique that you need the person you're talking about to do it. This person has administered drugs. He's been on the road. He knows these things, and he just happens to know IT too. So he might be the perfect candidate for this. And like I said, this is a very unique position.
And with this, if approved, obviously it's going to be advertised. If we find someone better than who we have, we're going to be tickled that they have an interest in Beaufort County. We know we've got a good one already, but we're going to look, it'll be open to see what we have from others as well.
Well, the data was very, very impressive that he brought to the EMS oversight. I mean, there's right at 10,000. It was just under 10,000 calls last year for every part of Beaufort County. So, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you very much. Do we have a substitute for Wes? We do. Okay. Come on down, Christina.
Good evening, Commissioners. West sends his apologies, but he's feeling a bit under the weather tonight, and his voice is not very clear, so he wanted to make sure that you could understand what was being said here tonight. The first item that I bring before you is a contract amendment for yard debris management. If you recall, for the past several years, Shavender Trucking has provided the grinding at the landfill. We issued an RFP for that portion of work 4 years ago. It was a 3-year contract with the availability or the option of 2 1-year extensions. We've extended it for one time. When we've had negotiations or discussions with Shavender, due to the increase in fuel price, he did request that a fuel charge be added to the extension contract. We believe that's in the best interest of the county to do that. And also, as has been the board's preference in the past, if you look at item number 4, it says that the fuel charge will be added if the price of fuel is over $3.50 per gallon. If the price of fuel were to drop, as we all know, the price of fuel is higher now, but if it were to drop back down to the $3.50, then the fuel surcharge would no longer be charged.
So it's a monthly, it can go up and down on a monthly basis?
Yes, sir. Well, actually, no, sir. It goes up and down almost on a daily basis.
Okay.
Because this is for non-highway diesel.
Yes.
Recommend this.
Oh, absolutely.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Any discussion? John?
The second dot point says yard waste management process was typically involved grinding debris and spreading it at the site. The process is not compliant. What does all that mean?
Yes, sir.
What does it mean we have to do?
Remove the debris from the site. We operate the yard waste processing facility under what is called a yard waste notification. That's basically a permit, without the name permit in the title of it, from the Department of Environmental Quality Solid Waste Division. And in order to be fully compliant with that yard waste notification, you are not supposed to retain the material that is collected and chipped on site. Beaufort County has been retaining that material for many years, and that has not been an issue until recently. They're starting, we've always, if you recall, for the past many years, we've had storm events and things like that, so they've been a little bit more understanding, forgiving, whichever word you'd like to use. But in all of our research as far as the solid waste procedures and policies of the county, that's something that we've discovered that we have not been compliant. So we're trying to become compliant.
So we're going to go from $13.08 a ton to $19.88 a ton.
Yes, sir.
That's a lot of big increase.
We only have one, basically we have one grinding left to do. So we try to do it sometimes 2 times a year, but we're hoping that it needs to be ground right now.
How much tonnage are we talking about on an annual basis?
I knew that West had, I do not have that here, and I cannot remember. Because we had, I do not know and cannot pull that up standing here.
This is all being done at the Hawkins
Yes, sir.
site.
Yes, sir. And again, because we did not have a storm event this past year, the amount of vegetative debris is less than what it's been in the past. That's why no additional funding is required.
How are we going to get ourselves compliant? If it's non-compliant, how are we going to become compliant?
Right now, this is the first step with the inspector. So for this grinding, we will remove the chips from site, and then we're going back, working with him. There may be going in and tilling of the debris that's there. It may be pushing it up into rows, but different management of the debris.
Now, does this includes the tillage on the site, this price?
No, sir. This is grinding and removing it from the site.
He's going to haul it off
Yes,
this
sir.
year. But we're plowing. I don't understand. It sounds like we're doing both. Sounds like we're hauling it away this year, and it sounds like we're tilling it in this year.
We may have to go back and till some of what's existing.
The prior stuff.
The prior things that have been there.
All you got to do is put some nitrogen on it and get your carbon-nitrogen ratio right, and it goes away.
Right.
Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor, raise your right hand.
Thank you.
You want to get to the next item, Kristen?
Yes, sir. Again, I bring this to you. We are requesting approval for a 2-year cellular service contract for additional security cameras. If you recall, it's been a few months that Wes brought this to you. We purchased 10 security cameras, and each of those cameras require cellular service to go along with that in order to transmit the information. We've installed the cameras at the sites, and what we have discovered is that there are 3 sites that we really need 2 cameras just because of the size of the site and this high levels of activities at the site. We can't get the entire, the camera does not span to get the entire site in. So we've gone back to U.S. Cellular and requested additional coverage. And just as with your cell phones, when you purchase a new phone, there's a new 2-year agreement. And because our purchasing policy requires the Board of Commissioners to approve any multi-year contracts, I bring this back to you with your approval to approve additional 3 2-year contracts for the additional 3 cameras.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right. Any, okay.
Yes, sir.
I just basically everybody will shop the cameras nowadays.
No, sir, we've only lost 1 to ammunition as far as we are aware.
That was on Beach Ridge.
Yes, sir.
Was it your friend?
No.
One of his friends.
It was somebody from another county. It was, I'm sure. Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand.
Thank you.
Thank you. Your next one is on the solid waste ordinance.
Yes, sir. And this last item is an update regarding the new solid waste ordinance. The first draft was sent to the county attorney for review, as well as the consultant engineer, tax office staff, finance office staff, and the county manager. We met, had a very lengthy discussion on that. I believe some of the draft copy was also sent out to the Board of Commissioners for their review as well. Just wanted to bring that forth to you to let you know that we are working on that. Not sure if the county attorney would like to speak, but again, we were, at the last meeting, we were discussing the legality of enforcement actions, criminal versus civil. The attorney has sent out some emails with his opinions on that. And also the method in which the solid waste fee is assessed and collected. We're still working through the details of that with the tax office, with the tax assessor, regarding the capabilities of the current tax software, whether currently, property in the county is not designated by its use, i.e. commercial or residential or institutional or industrial. You can't run a queue in the current tax software and get that information. So we're having to go back and do some manual pulling of numbers in order to look at the ways the fees are imposed and what's the most equitable way to do that.
David, did you want to add anything?
The only thing I wanted to add to it was I sent each of the commissioners somewhat of a plan that we were considering notifying people as mail we found. I say we found, I didn't find it, it was provided to me. And to bring it to their attention that horrible place on the road out there from my house to the dump, and you saw the pictures. We were going to notify the people whose trash we found, whether they put it there or their next door neighbor did. And
50.
And I heard, after sending to each of you, I heard from 3 commissioners. My conclusion was that you were not in favor of the mailing we were going to do, and we just backed away from it. I was a little surprised at that. I frankly thought, we got them, and you're going to maybe get some people out here to clean it up, whose trash it was. But there it sits. That's a concern. I mean, I think commissioners need to decide how they want to solve this problem. Maybe that's not a good idea to write them a letter and say, here's your trash. What are you going to do with it? We want you to go out and clean it up and pick it up. And maybe that's not the best idea. Seemed to be the time it was.
There's 2 things going on here. One, I need to give notice to the board, to the clerk, to the manager, and everybody else that my county email does not work. So use my regular business email. I do not intend to hook it back up because it was a big aggravation. Okay? So I didn't get what you sent out. But getting on to that, I agree with you 100%. I've had personal experience with that kind of a program where you go through their trash, you find their bills, and you in Hancock County, Kentucky, actually, so I don't know how the laws apply here, but I cleaned that up using that. And it only takes 2 or 3 months. You only have to write about 20 letters or make about 20 or 30 phone calls before the word gets around. What usually happens is people will start telling you, that's not my material, that's not this or that. And what you do is you read to them, I see that you're behind 3 payments to Woolworths on your credit card. And by the way, here's a letter from Aunt June. She says she's dying. Now you tell me that's not your mail. When they hear this, they immediately say, we'll come and get it. And they usually come and get it, clean it up, and do what they're supposed to do. What he is suggesting is a very good program. And I think that we should do it, and I make a motion that we do it.
I'd like to clarify the motion. I think that on each letter, it's to that individual and does not list the other ones. It's to David Francisco, and it's private.
Private.
It does not list the other
I
ones.
agree. You're going to get a lot more cooperation if you keep it private, because some people are genuinely embarrassed, and what you find out is some people have given their trash to a friend to get rid of, and they didn't do them a favor when they got rid of it. So all kinds of things go on here. The more private you can keep it, the better off you are.
But I'll second the motion if that gives you enough clarity. Any comments? Okay. All those in favor of the motion to notify them individually, raise your hand. Okay. Thank you. Just one example, and I may have said this maybe 2 months ago, there was a large garbage bag on the side of the highway on NC 99. I stopped and went through it enough to get the names off of it. Called the individual and was very nice, and I said, I realize you probably dropped it by mistake. He says, my son did it, I know. He says, and he'll pick it up tomorrow morning. And I thanked him for doing that.
Right.
So it does work. I think we can do it.
It works.
I think we can do it. So.
Fantastic. Thank you.
All right. Anita?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Want to give you a quick finance update on particularly the sales tax revenue. So we've just received information about our January sales. You've got a handout at your desk. And we did fall slightly for the January sales, which is anticipated. We hit our peak in December with the Christmas sales, and then if you look at the line graph down at the bottom, we always typically have a correction for the January sales when people are, they realize what they spent at Christmas, and so they're not spending as much. So we did take that normal slide, and we went down 3%, although the state did go up 4.4%, so that was kind of interesting to me. But wanted to share that with you, but still running a $1.5 million surplus in sales tax for the year. That's really all I have as a finance update for this evening.
Okay. You want to go into the workers' compensation plan?
Yes, sir, I would. So I did mention to you at the budget planning retreat that I wanted to explore the possibility of going at least partially insured with our workers' comp. So historically, the county has always been fully insured through the association's risk pool for workman's comp with a zero deductible. And when I got looking at the claims history, and you can see that listed on page 224, I actually reviewed the claims history for the past 6 years, and you can see that our average number of claims per year are 17 claims, and the 6-year average of the claims annually are right at $49,000 per year. So when you consider the fact that over the past 6 years, our insurance companies only paid out less than $49,000 on our behalf in claims per year, but we're paying $320,000 for the insurance, then you start asking the question, does it make sense any longer for us to have a zero deductible? There's an opportunity here for us to increase the deductible to a comfortable amount, a tolerable risk amount, and really produce some large savings for the county. So looking at what that appropriate amount of deductible would be, I reached out, of course, to the association to see what the premium would be on a $250,000 deductible retention and also a $100,000 deductible. And I also reached out to another company named Gallagher Risk Management that several of the counties in the state use. So you can see there at the bottom of page 224, based on the amount of deductible for the $250,000, the amount of premium for the $250,000 deductible, the association would be charging us $103,000 for that. And then if we add our average number of claims per year, 49,000, that gives us an estimated annual cost of right at $152,000 at a $250,000 retention. And if you compare that to what we're paying now, the almost $320,000, that produces about $168,000 in savings annually for the county. Looking at the $100,000 deductible with the association, the premium for that would be $124,000, plus our average annual claims of almost $49,000. That gives us an annual cost of the $100,000 deductible of $173,000, and that produces an annual savings of almost $147,000 for the county. So my recommendation to the board is that, given the savings between the two retention amounts, that we raise our deductible from $0 to $100,000. And if we do that, which I recommend we do, we will need to establish a workers' comp reserve fund in which we're going to take those savings of $147,000 each year and redirect those to that workers' comp fund. And also would like to recommend that we put $600,000 in there as a transfer from the general fund to give us a safety net, just in case something were to happen and we do have some claims and have to pay out. That higher deductible will be covered there as well. So essentially tonight I'm recommending that, and this would all happen with the new budget as of July 1, recommending that you allow us to move forward with that $100,000 deductible as of July 1, and that as of July 1 we will establish that workers' comp reserve fund. And in the budget that we present to you for next year, we'll be showing a transfer of $746,000, which is the $600,000 safety net and the $146,000 savings to that reserve fund. And are there any questions?
The deductible is $100,000 per occurrence or per incident.
Yes, so it's per incident. So I had that same question when we met with the association. You know, my concern was there could be a group of county employees in a vehicle traveling to a conference and there be an incident or an accident. And my question was, if there's 5 of us in the vehicle, is that $500,000 or is that $100,000? And it is per incident, so it would be the $100,000 deductible in a case like that.
Even though there was 5 people in?
That's right.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I understand your reasoning. I'm going to commend you for thinking like this. I think trying to save money is always a good idea. I have a problem with the risk that's involved in this. What worries me is if you come up with one of these deals that affects every employee in the county. And you know, with asbestosis that we've had in the past, we've had these volatile things come around. You got a whole bunch of other things out there that could affect every employee in the county. With a $100,000 deductible, we got what, about 400 employees? Round numbers? Yeah. Okay, you got a $40 million liability for like $100,000 a year in savings. I would rather see us do something like negotiate with the association for a $20,000 deductible on every employee. We would pay that, and then let's see what the rate is and take that, because when you have 0 deductible, you really have a tremendous insurance policy that's going to step in and take care of anything bad that could ever possibly happen to you. And I'd hate to be sitting here with 200 employees at risk for some claim that somebody made a plastic somewhere that's, you know, going to give everybody cancer, and now we've got to pay it. I mean, of course, we're going to sue them to get it, but we're still on the hook first in line, so.
So a couple of things. First of all, the $20,000 deductible, it did not really produce savings for us, not of any magnitude. And secondly, your point about, you know, like the mesothelioma cases, asbestos and things like that. You know, this is a risk, but I believe it's a calculated risk. And for your concerns in that area, in speaking with our risk manager, and she's here tonight, she can speak better to it than I can. You know, we would have to be found guilty that we were negligent in some way as an employer and that we directly caused that to happen to our employees. And because we have such a strong safety program in place for 5 years now, and we have all the policies and procedures in place that are set out by OSHA, I'm not saying it's not possible that we'd ever be found negligent of something, but in order for us to have to pay out a claim that you're speaking of in that terms or that magnitude, we'd have to be found, like I said, negligent in our duties.
What I would say to you is if you can conceive of it, it's possible for it to happen. With my employees and my workman's compensation insurance, I don't want any risk whatsoever for my employees. I don't want them looking at me saying, you should have protected me better than what you did, so my lawyer's now going to sue you. And that's the same thing that would happen with the county on a lot of this stuff. I think we need to treat our employees a whole lot better. I think they deserve the total protection that the law provides them. And that's a good thing about workman's compensation insurance. For those of you that don't understand it, if you buy the policy and get the 0% liability on you, you've got a total protection on this thing. It's very rare that you would be sued personally or outside of this. So I'm looking at it from risk, and I'm looking at it from employee benefit, because we spend a lot of time in here talking about employee benefit, but mostly we're shoveling money at them. We need to shovel some protection at them, and I'm not going to support changing it. I think the $150,000 that we save is nothing compared to the risk.
Thank you. Well, initially you touched on what I wanted to ask you, and since she's here, can you come up? Good, fine.
Okay.
And my thoughts are, you've been in dialogue with the finance officer about the risk involved here in Beaufort County. And it is your suggestion or acknowledgement that what she's about to do is a good thing.
I agree with her because I actually did it.
Hold, let me back up. Please identify yourself.
I'm Jennifer Orr. I'm the risk manager for the county. I've been here since September of 2016. Prior to that, I worked as a safety specialist for another municipality, and I did that for 9 or 10 years. And at that place, we were fully self-insured. So we didn't even have a co-insurance. We totally were self-insured. And so, in my experience, the plan that Anita has come up with is the best for the amount of money. It's a good cost and savings.
Thank you.
So you'll see the cost and the savings.
So, Mr. Chairman, just real quick, and let me clarify, we are not impairing the coverage for employees at all. There is no difference in workers' compensation coverage for our employees under this plan or under a zero deductible plan. The coverage is the same. We're just assuming some liability to pay up to a certain amount before the insurance kicks in. So there is no impairment to workers' compensation at all.
John?
Not at all.
Well, I don't know of any of us here that probably don't have a deductible on our house or on our car that we take that risk ourselves. And we've been through this. I fully support this plan. So.
Yes.
I mean, when you said we go $150,000 deductible, $100,000 deductible, so that means we as a county up to $100,000. If she sued me for saying something out the way to her, the county pays up to $100,000 before our insurance come in. Is that?
No, that falls under our P&L.
P&L. Okay.
This is strictly just for workers' comp.
Workers' comp.
Yeah, and what we're doing here, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. I wish I were that smart, but this is what most counties do. The city over there, they have a $600,000 deductible.
Well,
Greenville, the city of Greenville, they're 100% insured. They don't even have a stop loss in place that kicks in at any level. Right.
I understand, but what they have is not clear in my thoughts that I'm thinking.
So,
but what I'm trying, I just want to be clear, and maybe, and I support it if it's like you said, if it's saving money. But I want to make sure that $600,000 in an account,
a reserve.
Reserved to 6 people can take that up in one time. You never know what's going to happen. That's the point that I'm trying to get to. If these 6 people come in, or 10 people maybe come in, they could wipe that out in one time. But what you said to us is most of the time we are in the right.
And the thing is that the way I like to look at it, because I like it, I always say make it basic for me. So for example, if you have someone hurt and that occurrence is $49,000,
okay,
right? Then what it's saying is that $49,000, that money that's in reserve, we will basically pay that $49,000.
That's what.
So if you get somebody that has a claim, and normally you only going to have a death benefit that's going to be more than $100,000. Mm-hmm. And you got a bigger problem than that when you have a death benefit. So normally from the type of jobs that we have here at the county, the risks are not that high, because like for things, we don't have that much silica, we don't have asbestos, you don't have all those things have basically, you can't say for sure that they're totally done away with, but you have to have memos put out to say, okay, don't drill into the wall, don't do that. That's where the safety program comes in. So a lot of these things, you have to be able to identify and say, okay, this happened to me at work versus me being a general member of the public.
Okay.
So you look at it in that sense. So you may have, sometimes you may use that $100 for that occurrence. Mm-hmm. But when you look at the type of claims that we have,
they're minimal.
That's very minimal. Okay. The claims that we have a lot of times too, in workers' compensation, you have medical only, you have indemnity, and you even have first aids.
Okay.
A lot of the claims can actually be first aids, meaning you just got a Band-Aid and some Tylenol. Okay. For the medical only, you go to whatever the occupational doctor is, they tell you, okay, I'm going to put you out on restricted duty. That's normally $300 or $400. Indemnity is like if you have a surgery and things of that sort. Okay. That's when it gets big, but you rarely have those.
Okay. Now, once we change, and if the wheel run off, we can always go back and lower it down, can't we?
Yeah, we can look at this annually and choose what deductibles we'd like.
Thank you.
When you look at the last 6 years worth of history, I mean, the most we paid out was in 16, and that was $151,000. The next one was in 16, and that was 71. And you know, when you look at the different risk areas, you know, it looks like it's in water and the sheriff's office.
Yeah, the water meters have mitigated that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was started in July.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All those in favor of setting the reserve up and having the $100,000 deductible, raise your hand. Those opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you very
Have a good
much.
night.
All right, Brian, the modification of the EMS tax to include the town of Bath.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As you'll recall, we provide EMS services across the county using special tax districts, special EMS tax districts. You are not allowed as a county to put in a special use tax district without in a municipal area without the municipality agreeing to it. So in this, as you'll recall, it was 3-4 years ago, the town of Pantigga was set up the same way, where they were paying us the equivalent of 5 cents through their general fund to receive EMS services in their jurisdiction. The town of Bath was doing the same thing. We changed Pantigga because they asked us to, where the town of Bath has asked us to do the same thing. So you'll see the resolution from the town council of Bath that's asking us to take the 5 cents that they are currently paying and incorporate their area in the service district so that we would then bill for that on their tax bill. And the town of Bath would then either do away with the 5 cents whatever they chose to do. But that's totally up to them. So we have a timeline for you. As you'll recall, last time we did this, it's a very structured process. We have to hit our time marks on it. We have to put a public notice out. We have to send a mailer to every person who owns property in that jurisdiction. So we've got our timelines laid out. You'll see the new maps and then the timeline page. But they've asked us to do that. We've done it before for other municipalities. So we would recommend your approval moving forward on this.
If I remember correctly, Brian, I think you and I made a presentation to both of the town councils the same night, and Bath chose not to at the time, whereas Pantica did make the switch.
We did, Mr. Chairman. We talked to both of them because both of them asked us to explain it to them, and we did. And essentially, I think Bath looked at it a little too long because obviously the time frame in which we have to move on this, we can't get too close to the July 1 start date because we have to hit all our time frames. Or, it has to be out 4 weeks ahead of time. So last year they said, "Can we do it?" And we said, "You're too late." So we would make that recommendation to you move forward.
Motion to approve. Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you. The request for minimum rate for deputy sheriff's job classification. Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you'll see on page 230, Article 4, Section 6 of the Beaufort County Personnel Policy, hiring rate starting salary, lists that at a recommendation of the county manager, the Board of County Commissioners may authorize a special minimum rate for job classifications in which county experiences significant difficulty with recruitment and or retention of employees. In effect, this becomes the new minimum salary for employees hired into the class, and prior to utilizing the special minimum rate, salaries of current employees in the respective job class shall be reviewed by the HR director and the county manager and shall be adjusted to the special minimum rate to maintain equity in the class. So the sheriff's office came and said we're experiencing significant issues with recruiting and retaining deputy positions. They asked that the board consider the special minimum rate of $40,000. You'll see that in looking at that on page 231, they've given you comparisons of the neighboring counties that are drawing employees away from us. You'll also see their current deputies that are below this. They have a really good rubric in which they look at new hires. They'll look at them based on the educational incentives and then 1% of the base pay based on 5 years of experience. So they've got a set rubric in which they said if you have this much experience, we don't necessarily bring you in just at minimum. We'll bring you in 1% based on every 5 years and then based upon their educational attainment, which this board approved years ago before I got here. So you'll see, so part of this is the consideration of going to a special minimum of $40,000 for newly hired deputies. You've done this before. You did this for environmental health 15 years ago. Wasn't here then at the time either, but it's my understanding you did that. And then this would adjust those current deputies based on where they need to be, because if you don't adjust them like you've noted in the personnel policy, then you got compression again. You've moved them to 40, but they've been here for however many years, and you bring a new person in, you compress them right up against them. So these are the 6 folks and their qualifications that would adjust them based on their new recommendation. The fiscal impact is $89.59 for the existing ones in the class and $851 for each new one that's hired at $40,000. Chief Deputy Rose is here to answer any questions you might have about the comparison or any questions you may have about their rubric in which they look at hiring people. But based on the personnel policy, it's there. You have the ability to do that. We have to bring you that recommendation, and we're bringing you that recommendation for your consideration.
Motion to approve. Got a motion to approve?
Second.
And a second. Discussion. Yeah.
Let me, how, you say we have 6 people that don't meet these $40,000 qualification?
If you initiate the $40,000 minimum new special rate, then these would be below. You see where their current salaries are, so they'd be below 40. So you want to adjust them up based upon, so they don't get compressed right up against it. You don't want to take them to 40. You want to take them a little bit above it.
So this probably will start in July. Am I correct?
This would start immediately.
Immediately. Okay. Now let me ask one other question I have to ask. If we hire a new person at $40,000, Chief, you can help me with this if I'm off a little bit. After he get a certain out of probationary period, he get another raise. Is that correct?
No, sir.
Or y'all don't do that?
Well, the I guess things that makes it different for us than maybe other agencies is that the vast majority of the people we hire are a little bit of the minimum requirements.
Okay.
Because the sheriff can actually hire somebody off the street, and then we have a year to put them through BLET.
Okay.
But that is a lot of time and effort, and the attrition through BLET, a lot of times, if you hire four and do it, you actually get one employee. So we hire people who are already BLET certified. So we actually start paying them a little bit more than what the minimum would be because of that certification.
Now, Lenore County done this last week.
Correct.
What is their minimum salary?
I know Lenore County has gone up recently, and I know Kinston Municipality has gone up recently, and their numbers are right around that 40 to 42.
What's Pitt County's minimum?
Their Pitt County's minimum, and I believe it's listed up there, is right at 42,000.
Okay.
Now, I would love for us to say 42 for us.
Okay.
But 42 puts us so close to the first promotion. You know, if you get promoted to sergeant, you're making 45. So I wouldn't want to hire somebody at 42 and then promote them and be like, congratulations, you got tons more responsibility, but I can't give you much more money.
That's what I was getting at. But I don't have a problem with what you're doing. But the thing about it is, I'm taking you for your word. You said today that, I mean, most of the time when anybody that hire you after you get out of probationary period, you get a little bump.
Sure.
But what I was trying to get to is the 6 that you were bringing up to the minimum, and the ones that just come on, if we gave them a bump, then that 6 deserved the same bump that the ones that we hired. But since you don't give nobody bumps unless you get promoted to sergeant or something.
That's part of what our issue is that there's really not a mechanism even in county for end-grade pay adjustments. I mean, there's just not.
I mean, I was thinking you done it, but I mean, if you say you're not doing it, I'm fine with it.
No. I mean, in years past, we were able to do stuff like that. But probably about 2 years ago, that pretty much put an end to that.
I thought I heard that. I didn't think I was dropping off that much.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And if I could do it now, I wouldn't be here right now. We would have already fixed it before we got to that point.
I just when you hear you say that you've done it, but you said we don't do it. So
yeah,
we don't do it now.
Rules change, and when they do, I follow those.
I don't have a problem with what you asked.
Yes.
Charlie, this would affect the 6 vacant positions that you're showing.
No, they're not vacant. The positions that you're seeing are people are in.
Right, but if you a new hire.
Yes. Well,
on the report that.
And really, basically, we actually have the vehicle in place to hire people at a higher rate without it having to come before the commissioners. There's policy in place for us to do that. Where the request that we're making, that the sheriff and I are making, is that out of all fairness to the 6 who are already here and already doing the job, I mean, I put myself in their position. If we started hiring people, if I've been here for years and I'm doing my job, and then you hire somebody and they're actually making more than me on the day one, I would probably find that very unfair. So I'm just trying to do what's fair for the 6 people that we already have that are doing their job. That's just what we need to do if we're going to hire people at 40.
And the personnel policy speaks specifically to that inequity. So there's not compression.
One of the major things that you do when you do get a pay increase is for education.
Yes.
Okay.
But there's no, we got this, help me with this, I don't even know the nomenclature. You got this job classification, say it's 51. Within that classification, are there not steps? There's a maximum and a minimum for that classification?
Commissioner Richardson, there's a hiring grade, there's a mid-grade, and there's a maximum. So if you think about steps, that's kind of like the state plan, where every 2.5% or every 5%, there's a step, and you step up as you go through the grade. We don't have that. So based on the personnel policy and depending upon the person's qualifications, history, and experience in the same field, the sheriff's office can bring someone in based on their rubric that they have up to the midpoint. If they bring someone in at midpoint or above midpoint, it has to come to the board for approval. I can't approve it above midpoint. So they can bring it to me, and Charlie can say, based on this rubric, this person has this much experience, they have this much education, we want to hire them at 15% above hiring rate. And they say, this is why, okay. But we can't go above midpoint without coming to the board. So we don't have steps.
But if I can add to that, right now with the way things are, if I hire somebody, unless they get promoted or reassigned, the only way that they're getting an additional pay increase is through a COLA. There's no mechanism in place for merit-based incentives. You did put something in place for longevity that is, I guess, was just put in place last year that, was a little bit retroactive, but really the folks that we're seeing aren't going to see that for 4 or 5 years. So, and that's really the only mechanisms that are in place now. I can't see, or I can't really do anything at a department level, at a division level, without getting approval from the board for any individual pay increase for any employee. There's not a mechanic in place through the personnel manual.
And if I could just add, that's when we speak about the 3 legs of the stool, and we have the longevity piece, which we have in place now. We have the market piece, which the COLA covers, and what Charlie's referring to is the merit piece, which we don't have. And that's...
Well, and you may not necessarily look at a merit piece. You may look at a step. So a timing grade. Now, I'm not sure I'm a fan of step simply because I've been here 10 years, you got to pay me this. And I've been here, I could be the sorriest employee, or I could be doing just enough to get by and not get fired. Then, the state will put you in those steps where you get and you get and you get. So, and I understand you are not a merit guy, and I get it, and that's just where you and I differ.
I'm going to be the sorriest employee you ever had, but I play golf with me, and I get it. And that's not you, I'm just saying that in general. So that's what merit does, bring dissension.
In all fairness, there are some challenges with merit, and I would agree to that, absolutely. It has to be done correctly, there has to be good oversight on it, and there has to be really clear metrics when you're looking at it. But you can, just like any other program, there are opportunities to do wrong if it's not looked after and maintained and done right. So I would agree with you, and I understand, Commissioner Booth, you've had some bad experiences with the state of North Carolina, and I understand that. I used to work for the state of North Carolina too, and I understand exactly what you're saying.
But see, I'm like my good friend.
You might.
I'm like my good friend, Mr. Langley here. Some juice just ain't worth the squeeze. And I don't care how human we are. We got buddies. I'm not hiring county employees, but I got people who work right here, right now. If I had my way about it, I'd give them more money. Is that right? No. But we are human, and there's no way nowhere on the God's earth you can make merit pay fair, because we are human.
So what I would challenge you on then is, I think the board understands the challenge that we have in keeping employees and helping them progress through the pay range as they stay here. We do try to keep, the board tries to keep up with COLA.
That's right.
Ever since I came to work here, y'all have always instituted COLA based on what CPI is. Now, I'll tell you, we're going to have an interesting conversation with CPI this year, because CPI is 8.5% right now. I think we're going to recommend to you a 5%, but we can have a discussion about that later. But that's a huge number for us, and we need to know ahead of time how we can work that. But there's got to be a mechanism to be able to reward an employee for good performance and move them up in the range, instead of just saying, we're going to give you a COLA, because a COLA affects everybody. It just everybody steps up with that. The longevity just simply says, you've been here long enough, you get this. So remember, they talked about, like Anita said, the 3-legged stool. If you want a solid pay and classification plan and you want to reward good performance, you got to figure out a way to do that. I know you don't like merit, but you got to figure out something, or you're going to have high performers who are getting paid the exact same thing as people who are just getting by. And what that does is that encourages the just getting by. I can't fire you if you come to work every day and do what you're told, and I can't give you a raise if you're the most stellar, outstanding employee we have. And eventually what happens is that most outstanding, stellar employer says, why am I doing that? I'm going to get the same pay as what that person is, so I'm just going to kick back and relax like they are.
That sounds...
Yeah, but it's a challenge.
But any employee that comes to work for Beaufort County planning on a career in county government, they can move around within the system by bidding for other jobs that pay more, and they can change classifications. You could have a deputy classification 1 and a deputy 2, for that matter, to get promoted into for stellar performance. I mean, you've got to be able to move. You've got to be able to give employees who are stellar performers a better opportunity than those who are not.
I actually appreciate that you're saying that, because that's actually been something that we've been trying to put together for years. It just hasn't made it through the budget process. I mean, we've eliminated the corporal position at our office because of trying to make things fair overall to the entire pay plan from the sheriff down to the deputy level. And to your point, I think, and you know, this is just part of sort of a vision. If you have somebody that comes into law enforcement, they come in for a specific reason. You don't have anybody who just really backs their way into law enforcement because there's too many obstacles that you have to go through to get there. But then you have people who are in the early 20s that come in and they are full of fire and they want to go. Well, what happens when these guys get to be 25, 26, 27? They get married, they start to have children, and then the idea of the whole point of, hey, I'm doing this because I love it and I don't need to get paid goes away, because they've got to pay utility bills and they've got to buy bats and gloves and things like that. So you see people who would love to stay at a level of Deputy 1 or Deputy 2 that need to feel that they need to promote and promote so they can make more money, even if that puts them in positions that they either don't want to be in or maybe even shouldn't be in.
Well, there's no question in my mind, and I've said this over and over again, that deputy that's been here for 10 years, that by now knows half the county and where the problems are, is worth a lot more money than that deputy who has been here a year or two and is just learning to get around.
But you don't get there if you don't pay them. You've got to pay them to stay there and do that, because otherwise you'll have, you know, sheriffs in Pitt County and Craven County that will suck up that experience and knowledge that we've put into them
with more
and pay them $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000, and then after that point we are forced. Good things and bad things, but at that point we're forced at being that 0 to 5 years. And right now, if you look at our agency, right now we're at that point where we're 8 to 16 years. And I don't remember ever being at that point, but you see salty, knowledgeable deputies every way you look, and we need to do whatever we can to keep those deputies.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I really have a problem with this. I'm not going to vote for it because I think it's the wrong way to solve the problem.
Sure.
I'd rather go back with some kind of a step system, or a system if you've been here for 3 years and you have a superlative, we can move you up into another deputy classification in order to reward you for that. I know that we're given the pay for the years of service. That really doesn't do it for me. But I know myself, and I've worked in industry too, and you have people that just don't want to be promoted.
Sure.
They like their job. They want to stay right where they are. They don't want any more responsibility. And these are the people usually that you can depend on, that are very well settled in their job. They're not flighty. They're not supervisory problems.
Mr. Chairman.
John's got something.
I think this whole discussion, though, is not about creating a new pay plan for the sheriff's office. It's about setting a minimum standard pay for new hires and making it and correcting situations that would cause with these 6 deputies.
Correct.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
This is a Band-Aid to fix the problem now.
That whole discussion over there is for another day.
We got them. Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm in full support of this. I mean, you've got to be able to have a new pay plan that you can advertise that is competitive in the marketplace. I looked at 18 different agencies in eastern North Carolina that their starting salaries were available. Of the 18, 16 of them are 40 or 1,000 or above.
Correct.
Okay. So I'm totally in favor of it. We can't keep going with 16 people down.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed. Okay, we're going to take a break. Be back.
15 minutes. Your next item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. You'll see this is an invitation letter from DEQ for the Public Beach and Coastal Waterway Access Cycle, which is 22-23. This would be an opportunity for us to go after this additional grant opportunity to finish out Wrights Creek. I know some people have opinions about Wrights Creek, some people have different opinions about Wrights Creek, but it's a phased approach. That third and final phase of Wrights Creek, we could actually go after with this grant cycle. It's in the 20-county coastal area, and it only requires a 25% match as compared to a part of grant, which is a 50% match. The COG has agreed to write the letter for us, the initial letter, at no cost. We still got to come back to you if we get approved to move forward with it, but it's a great opportunity to go ahead and finish that project out with less match money if you want to do it. So,
Motion to approve.
Got a motion and a second. Randy made the second. Okay? Yes, sure can. John?
Quick question, Brian. They reference in-kind contributions, and when you go through that, it looks like there's probably some opportunity there. For that would
can be.
That take up our 25%.
Maybe.
Part of it.
Part of it, maybe.
Part of it.
Right.
John, get out there and cut the grass, Mr. Man.
No, I think it means you got to go down with a shovel or a backpack.
Take my bag.
Or what they call a bush axe. A bush axe. Okay, any other comments? All those in favor, raise your hand. Those opposed? All right. Now we're down to Commissioner Richardson.
Ankle bracelet program, I guess, is the first one. Well, no.
Staffing.
Sheriff's, vacancies in the sheriff's department. Right now, there's 16, which sort of goes to what we were just talking about. I think that's all that we need to say, is the sheriff's still looking for employees.
We do, as far as your numbers go, if I may, we're one short in each of those. So we've hired one sworn position, one detention officer, and one telecommunicator since the time of that report of March 1. So down to 13. We do have some pending. I will say with the applications that we get, especially for deputies, we may get 20 applications, and then through that first screen, see that they're, we might not have any in a batch of 20 that can move on to the next level. So we are getting nibbles, we are getting bites, we are getting applications, and if we can move them along, then we're moving along. It's just, we're working to it. But that's all I have for that.
All right, stand right there in case there's a question.
Well, ankle bracelet program is the next thing. There are only 4 people on ankle bracelets: felony sex offense, murder, and drug offense, $10,000 bond on that one, and a felony desecration of a grave, $1,500 security bond. I'm still puzzled that we can't have more people on ankle bracelets. And I realize the problems that go with it, but I still think that we need to do some innovative things so we can get people on them. Staying at home, having to stay at home with your wife or your mother is definitely, having to stay at home with your wife or your mother is definitely punishment if you're on an ankle bracelet and you can't go anywhere. So
stay right there. Why don't you go with item number 6 on the drug epidemic, in case Charlie needs to make a comment.
Okay, well, I was hoping that we could spend some time on that, the drug epidemic. What I would like to do is for us to start an initiative. This country is eat up with drugs. I talk to people all the time that can't hire people because they can't pass a drug test. They can't get a CDL because they can't get a drug test. You look at the people that are in the labor pool, and you really feel sorry for a lot of people who have ruined their lives with drugs. And I've talked to a couple of Superior Court judges about their opinion about what should be done or could be done to put a stop to drugs. And I'm not one of these people who say we've lost the drug war, we're going to have to give up and go away, because drugs only get worse. The people that I've seen that have come close to overdosing, and some of them don't even know they've overdosed, are pitiful people. We as a society, as a Christian society, owe them a lot more than this. the opinion that I've had from the people who are on the enforcement end, that is of the law, the judicial end, think that the drug laws that we have are too lax, too easy, and it's too easy to get away with it. And that if we made the penalty for dealing drugs high enough, it would not be worth, the crime would not make it worth dealing drugs. Now, we may have to build another prison in North Carolina in order to do this. The countries in the world, if you look at some of the Indonesian countries and you look at China, and we all know something about the opium trade in China where the British were selling the Chinese opium and they were hauling a lot of money back to England and all that. When those countries that have been eat up with this sinful criminal activity, when they finally got a hold of it, they made the penalty for dealing drugs and even possessing drugs so high that it is not worth it. They cleaned up their situation. That is the only way that we're going to clean up the drug situation here in the United States. And my whole purpose in this is to start a discussion that maybe we come back at our next meeting and that we need to be talking to our legislators about taking a whole new look at the drug laws in the state of North Carolina. And I'll say this, there are a lot of people that will take exception, but it's becoming more and more true from what all of the experts say that have looked at this. The biggest lie out there is that smoking marijuana helps your health. That is the biggest single lie that there is. The stuff is addictive, and you can ruin your mind, and we know that the suicide rate is much higher from people that are smoking marijuana than from anybody else. So let's take a look at what we can do to clean our county up by getting the state of North Carolina to make these laws more restrictive and appropriate the money for another major prison to hold nothing but these people.
Thank you, Charlie.
You're welcome.
Ethics policy on county employees serving on boards and committees.
Well, I said I would have something for this meeting on that. I really don't have anything for it, but my position is the same that it has been, is that is if you're a county employee, you shouldn't be serving on any of the oversight boards or commissions that affect your job. You can certainly attend the meeting. The board or commission needs you if you're an employee and your expertise and your information and your knowledge, but you shouldn't be voting on your own department and your own job. We're doing the wrong thing when we do that. So I'll probably bring that back on the agenda next month.
All right, next one is the lawsuit against illegal immigrants.
I don't know. I guess I put this on here. I don't remember exactly. I thought Stan mostly had this rather than me. So I will defer to Stan when we come to this.
Are you talking about the amicus brief?
Well, I think the amicus brief is in here, and I want to keep thinking about that. I haven't had time to work on it, frankly, is the only reason that something hasn't happened on it.
All right, let's go to the county employee drug test.
I think I got an email on this that today or maybe yesterday that said that we do, 16 employees every quarter or something?
Yes, it's in your agenda.
Right, and they're selected randomly, and that we test those. How many positive hits have we had?
I don't think we've had any.
Oh, that's great.
They are safe, and it's for safety-sensitive positions. You can only test safety-sensitive positions.
You can't test those. What if you suspect they're using drugs?
If you have reasonable suspicion, you can, but it's a higher bar.
Yeah. How many reasonable suspicions have we had?
I'm not aware of any reasonable suspicions.
Okay. All right, that's good.
I got a question to you, man.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, what were you saying about that? You can't, about the drug policy?
Yes, sir. So the Supreme Court, or I guess it's the United States Supreme Court ruled that if you're a government employee, you can't make everybody be screened as a government employee. As a private business employee, you can screen everybody. But for government employees, you can only screen safety-sensitive positions. So a person who is not deemed safety-sensitive, a receptionist, an admin person, you can't just randomly drug screen them. The government, the law does not allow you to do that.
I'll need to make a motion. That's all.
Okay, Stan, you're up.
Okay, first one I think I'm going to deal with is going to be talk about our governor, who still has emergency powers in order to decide how COVID is handled in North Carolina. And I'm going to give you a rationale of what's happening across the nation. Right now, in our 50 states, 28 of the states have allowed their emergency powers to expire. There are, 29 states have allowed theirs to expire. 21 states are keeping their emergency powers in force. 7 of the states are predominantly Republican governors, and 14 are Republican Democrats. So it's across the field both ways. That doesn't make it right.
You said Republican Democrats.
I said states. Well, I'm sorry if I was misinterpreted there. Maybe I did slur it a little bit. I don't know. But seven states have predominantly Republican governors. And then, this is what I thought I said, and then 14 states have the Democrat governors. It's a political issue. I don't know if it's a bipartisan wrong. 4 of the states are border states. They all are keeping their emergency powers in place for reasons unbeknownst to me, but it could be that they're border states. 2 of those states are Democrat states. 2 are Republican states. North Carolina is becoming a border state, and we're going to get to that next. But I don't think this is what our governor is concerned with. Okay, let me explain something to the public, to the board. There is no way this governor is going to lose this emergency powers unless the election coming up, in this next general election, goes one or 2 ways, or both. The Supreme Court, there's a full slate of people seeking new seats. If the Republican majority becomes in effect on the Supreme Court, there is a chance that they could take action, or action would be brought to them, because the Supreme Court now is not a favorable court. That action could happen. I'm not so sure what would eventually be the outcome. But the other way this could go down would be for the General Assembly to have a supermajority of Republicans elected. Either way, something's got to happen. Something's got to give. We cannot have a governor who has emergency powers. These powers were put in place through our Constitution for disasters. COVID is not a disaster. It has become a political tool and has been used to acquire money. So far, in the last year, about $4 trillion. And we now see the resultant inflation and gas prices going up, people being paid not to work. Nothing is working in this nation well economically. And it's going to continue down that path as long as we keep having too much government money out there chasing too few goods, hence inflation. So things have got to change. I'm saying we have got to allow more of the elected folks in this state have more of an opinion. If the governor is going to have emergency powers, he should have them for a specified time. The oversight should be drawn from the General Assembly. And I think that is going to happen, that needs to happen. Our Representative Kidwell has taken a strong position on this issue. Of course, it failed. They got the amount of Republicans that voted in order to stop the emergency powers and limit the time that the governor can use those emergency powers. But, of course, the governor vetoed it, and there was not a supermajority to override the veto. So that's an issue, and it's something we need to broach again. If you'll remember back, a good many businesses in Beaufort County were closed. Some of these businesses were considered non-essential, while other big box businesses were allowed to remain open. For whatever reason, they were considered essential, even though the ownership of those businesses were from states far, far away. So, and then I think we all remember that our schools were closed close to a year. Fortunately, we weren't as closed as long as in some other areas. But I've talked to some people high up in the education industry here in Beaufort County, and they say for some students, there's about 3 years that they've lost in terms of their education. And we're going to be re-educating children at a greater expense. This idea you're going to get them through in 13, 14 years, counting kindergarten, pre-kindergarten, that's not going to happen for a few more years. So just understand this is a tremendous cost, and we need to broach this, if for no other reason, to support whoever our representatives are in the General Assembly to do what is right and override any veto of this governor in the next session. Now, I'm going to move quickly on to Title IV, what's happening down on the border. And the Biden-Harris open southern border and resettlement project is going great guns right now. It appears that about 200,000 people have been coming in for an average per month, and they have been expelling about 95,000 on average. So we have a net of about 1 million folks in the last year that are remaining in this country illegally. It has just come to my attention, and probably to the attention of this board and a lot of people in the audience, that Title 42, which is a part of our bureaucracy that allows our Border Patrol to send these people back because of COVID, is going to go away. And that has been announced, that Title 42 will no longer be in force, and that folks will be coming possibly to this country in greater numbers because there is a greater potential for them to be here and do well at our expense once again. So this is going to be an issue for us. We all understand that. That's why I've made the point that Beaufort County is a border county. It is going to be a greater border county in the future, and I'm going to ask our administration what has been done so far, because I'll be bringing this up month after month after month until we get somewhere.
Well, tell me, and then before they ask the question, because I want to get some clarification. How is Beaufort County a border county besides border Pitt County, Hyde County, Washington County? Explain that to me.
Because last year we have 1 million new illegals just coming across the southern border. And we also have drugs coming into this county from down coming across the southern border, mostly fentanyl, marijuana, other drugs. That number of 1 million is going to probably increase this next year. What I am also hearing is that with the greater numbers that are anticipated coming across the southern border because of Title 42 being done away with, that a lot of our Border Patrol agents will no longer be apprehending, they will be doing paperwork and babysitting all these people that are coming across. So the numbers I'm hearing are going to be more like about 300,000 a month, maybe even 400,000 a month, and no expulsions, possibly no expulsions. So we could have as many as 4 million new illegals coming into our country just across the southern border alone. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. So my idea is we have to be proactive and move now to find out what's happening so we can advocate for this stopping, at least as far as Beaufort County is concerned. It is, but they're moving them up here by bus, by airplane. The NGOs down in these 4 border states are involved tremendously. The government hands them off to the NGOs, and then their hands are washed of the situation, and they make their way up here. There's no oversight by the Department of Homeland Security with the NGOs.
I'd like to wish all the North Carolina Tar Heel fans much success.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we haven't heard from the administration yet. I have an open question to them before Commissioner Booth asked me a question.
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Edwards, in response to that, I've not received any reports, or am I aware of any reports of illegal aliens being dropped off in Beaufort County?
Have you found folks that can give you that data, that information on a ready basis?
The only folks that I have would be the sheriff's office if they arrested someone, or if someone were to report that. I mean, the conversation that we had with the state is for folks that are immigrants that are legal folks. I mean, that are refugee programs. That's the only
Yeah, I
folks
think
we
you answered your own question.
There is a way to do
You
that.
said that the NGOs take over and nobody knows what happens.
Yeah, but there's a way to get the answer in Beaufort County.
You gotta do something to change that.
The way, what you do, what we would like to have, this is a request for the next meeting, is we would like to have social services tell us how many children, undocumented children, they have given benefits to during the last 30, 60, 90 days, because that's where this thing goes. It goes into the local social services department, and it's done through the attachment to children.
Yeah, I've heard that as novel, and I'll tell you why. You're talking last 90 days, maybe go back 6 months, and then we can kind of get a data set of how much of an increase, because a lot of what I'm hearing from some social services people is that it begins in the WIC program, or no, the, what do you call it?
Well, it can be the WIC program and children's benefits, both. I think the WIC program's administered by the health department, maybe through social services.
Yeah.
There's a connection there, but I think we need to ask for both of these, and I'm making that as a motion.
Okay. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Those opposed?
We can still make, I'm going to put it on the agenda, and we can still make the request as a citizen.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Okay. We'll try one.
I'm done.
All right. Try one more time. I wish all my North Carolina Tar Heel fans much success tonight. So, anyway.
I want my 2 minutes, by the way. Don't forget.
All right. I thought you'd already had 2 minutes.
No, I've had more than 2 minutes, but I want the 2 minutes to comment. The other is, there were 2 important things that came up on the consent agenda that flew right through and nobody bothered to pull them off. And one of those was the health department's consolidated agreement with the state of North Carolina. And I suspect that most of these commissioners don't know how that works. It's basically during the early part of the fiscal year, the health department goes and makes a deal with the state for benefits and new programs and all these sorts of things, and then this gets rolled into the budget, and it comes back as something that you have to do because the state of North Carolina tells you that. At least that's what I was told for many years until I finally dug into it and I feel what was really going on. This is really an important event, and it shows that most of our commissioners really don't know what's going on, and they're clueless, because that thing should have been pulled out and discussed in great detail, and I just sat here and let you show yourselves up.
No, you had every chance to do that.
I've pulled it up for years and years before, but you are the people that are supposed to know enough about what you're doing, and I'll bet you there's not a single one of you that can tell me what that consolidated agreement is about, other than what I just told you.
So, Commissioner Richardson, if I could, Mr. Madison was not able to be here tonight, but he did leave me a message and said if the commissioners do ask about the consolidated agreement, which he anticipated someone would, he said if they do ask about the consolidated agreement, please brief them for me. The consolidated agreement is an agreement between the state and the health department to do basic public health. It is principally a business agreement that allows us to draw money down from the state. Specific programs are not a part of the consolidated agreement. Those come with agreement addendums, or AAs, and the funding is attached to the AAs. So that was Mr. Madison's response.
Well, all that, Madison knows a lot better than I do because he's a health director, but that's the agreement that has allowed the health department to expand during the last 10 or 15 years. That's what they use to add employees and this and that. So it's not quite as white and holy as what he's represented as being, because I've fussed about it for years. Go back to the minutes and you'll see for years and years, I was told in the early years, you have no choice but to approve this agreement. And every time somebody tells me that, I get very suspicious. And that's where I found out what was really going on with this. It's a sham game that's pulled, and commissioners that are dumb enough to let them get away with it, they always get away with it. One more thing, there was a $79,000 munis module that was, sir, you are abusive. You are abusive. You are abusive. You could extend the courtesy to another commissioner.